Thousands of people were woken up around 4 a.m., and those people were called to anchor in the higher timeline where Kamala was the winner. If I am interpreting my meditation downloads correctly, that we will begin collapsing those timelines tomorrow, June 14th.
Today is the day that ends in Y, so woke people on the internet are not coping well. We're going to break down the latest absurd conspiracy theory going mega viral on TikTok and so much more on today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show where we take on the craziest ideas from across the internet, our media, and our politics, all from an independent perspective. Before we get into all our official business for the day, guys, quick heads up that I'm actually moving to Miami this week. So we're driving down there. It's going to take a couple days, so I will most likely be missing shows Tuesday and Wednesday. So thanks for bearing with me through that. And I can't wait to get going again down in our new place in Miami. Also, a bunch of people have been asking me for my take about the Iran situation. But frankly, I don't cover a lot of foreign policy in my coverage for a reason. I'm not an expert in it. It's super complicated. I don't quite know what to believe. Maybe I'll do some interviews or a debate with guests at some point, but I'm not going to cover it extensively on this channel because, frankly, there's just better sources you could go to for coverage on this complicated issue where, honestly, it's tough to know exactly what's going on. But I absolutely do hope that our U.S. service personnel overseas are safe and that hopefully things can be de-escalated to a situation where we don't end up in another all-out war. Now, guys, let's get to our main story today, which is the absolutely delusional movement gaining steam on TikTok, where some people, and I'm going to say this, though no shade to all of y'all, it's mostly the woke white wine moms, if we're being so for real, have convinced themselves that they are in an alternative timeline where Kamala won, that they spiritually connected with, and it's going to merge with our timeline soon. It sounds like I hit the crack pipe one too many times. I know it does, but I didn't. We're going to take a look at a video from the Free Press summing up this bizarre TikTok phenomenon. Take a look.
The left-wing version of QAnon is here, and they believe that Kamala Harris really won the election. This group is called the 4 a.m. Club.
Basically, on November 6th, thousands of people were woken up around 4 a.m., and those people were called to anchor in the higher timeline where Kamala was the winner.
The call was sent out, and we received it.
It was founded by this woman who goes by Gia Prism on TikTok.
I am a psychic medium. I'm a healer.
She sort of gives downloads, as she calls them, from spirit.
This contest wasn't right. We will yet get a different result in the end. I was shown him falling from something to do with blood on the brain.
Okay, I'm seeing lower level leaders will be removed before the top ones.
It bears a striking resemblance to QAnon, except everything has been feminized. Instead of searching through Reddit boards and 8chan to find what they're looking for, they go deep within themselves, trusting their feminine intuition, their gut, the divine goddess. The 4 a.m. clubbers, I don't think, are going to be scaling the Capitol anytime soon, but I do think they represent the next chapter in the story of political conspiracies. It shows that the American population feels both completely out of control and lied to.
So you just heard from Susie Weiss there of the Free Press, who I thought did a really insightful job discussing this. But wow, what a phenomenon. It's just kind of everything. It's just like the chef's kiss combination of the most lunatic fringes of social media. And I should be clear that this isn't the biggest, micro universe in social media in the world, but it's also not that small, and it's not inconsequential. And it is breathtakingly hypocritical from the democracy people who spent years complaining, and quite rightfully, about how shameful it was for MAGA, some, not all, but many MAGA supporters to deny the results of the 2020 election, which Trump lost and Biden won. I agreed with many of their criticisms of those people who did that, but then some of these Blue Anon people, or the comparison to QAnon is kind of apt, honestly, really do seem to engage in something of a similar sort in the opposite direction now, without detecting the clear irony or hypocrisy here. And it reminds me of something that happened after the 2016 election, which Trump won and Hillary Clinton lost, where there was this multi-year, basically media narrative about how Trump colluded with Russia to steal the election, basically, or to interfere in the election. And it ended up not being a whole lot of truth to it. And more importantly, we hear a lot about right-wing conspiracy theories and right-wing election denial. And to be clear, there's a lot of that in American politics. And my friend Isaac Saul over at Tangle News has done a really amazing job extensively documenting how untrue a lot of those stories and beliefs are. And he's extensively debunked this stuff if you are interested. But it does frustrate me sometimes when mainstream media outlets will act like this doesn't really exist on the left when it very much does. A shocking portion of Democrats believed in 2016 or after 2016 that Putin had literally hacked the voting machines to swing the election to Trump, which he hadn't. And reporting, even in the mainstream media, never even suggested that. But they totally internalized this false anti-democratic notion and conspiracy theory, but it just doesn't get the same attention as, like, you know, the mega conspiracy theories that the mainstream media loves to dissect and talk about. And sometimes, again, sometimes rightfully so. Now, I want to get more into this 4 a.m. club. They literally think that they were spiritually awoken at 4 a.m. on the night of the election in some sort of message from, like, the nether worlds or something. And I'm not a spiritual person, so my shade here is going to come out a little bit that, oh, well, in another timeline, Kamala won. And they seem to think that the timelines will merge at some point and Trump will be removed from office and Kamala will replace him, which is just not a thing. Like, if Trump was removed from office, JD Vance would become the next president. I want to play you a full one of these videos so you get a better sense of what exactly we're dealing with. And warning, guys, the Delulu is off the charts.
Okay, so the 4 a.m. Club is a term coined in a club founded by Gia Prism. I've tagged her and linked one of her pinned videos that explains. But basically on November 6th, thousands of people were woken up around 4 a.m. And those people were called to anchor in the higher timeline where Kamala was the winner. This is not a small club. This is thousands of people, and I was one of them. My specific experience was that I woke up at 4 a.m. on November 6th, and I had a knowing without looking at my phone that he had won. But everything in my body, in my mind, in my soul, in my energy felt like that was not true. It felt like she had won, and I was somehow being made to watch a parallel timeline where he won. And I have existed in that alternate timeline since 4 a.m. on November 6th, just as thousands of other 4 a.m.ers have. I have been so steadfast, so rock solid in my belief that she won, and it was only a matter of time until we all got onto that timeline that my friends have looked at me like I'm crazy and told me I'm delusional. But those of us in the 4 a.m. club viscerally experienced that timeline split on November 6th. We have been existing this whole time on a completely different timeline, and we have been holding the light. We have been holding the vision. We have been anchoring that timeline while the rest of this country has been going through the necessary steps to merge with that timeline. And I believe, if I am interpreting my meditation downloads correctly, that we will begin collapsing those timelines tomorrow, June 14th.
So, guys, it is now June 23rd, and I don't know about y'all, but Trump's still president, and I haven't noticed the timelines merging. The wine moms are out of control. They really are. I mean, this idea is so crazy, I barely even know how to engage with it, but yeah, you felt like this was wrong inside because you were really emotionally upset about it. Doesn't mean you actually exist in an alternate dimension where this didn't happen. Like, this is just levels of denial and cope that cannot be healthy for any human being to engage in. And the comments, it's not just a couple of these like influencer people. The comments are filled with people, again, almost exclusively women, doubling down on this utter delulu. I have chills. It's thousands of us who are so confident in our knowing. And now the courts are slowly starting to validate the data. It's happening. Are the courts in the room with us, love, who are validating your data? This isn't happening. This is not a thing. Another person commented, yes, I was also one of the 4amers. Balulu, heart. Okay, at least I appreciate the self-awareness from her that she seems to realize this is just blue delulu, but thinks that's a good thing? Another person said, I've never heard about the 4am club, like ever, until your prior video. It's like you're telling my story that happened to me on November 6th. I haven't told anyone because it sounds crazy. My guides now bring me here on Friday the 13th. I'm kind of freaking out right now. Your guides? Are the guides in the room with us? I'm sorry, if you're hearing from guides, you should tell a doctor about that because there are no guides. Yup, 4am club here, and I will never forget waking up and the feeling I had. The next month or so was some of the saddest I can recall, but it's where I have found so many wonderful creators here who have kept me sane. And now we are all seeing it play out. The rise of the divine feminine is here. Is this you being kept sane? Another person says, yup, I'm a 4am club member. I'm so glad I found so many other members back in November, or it would have been a very lonely 7 months. Okay, so I think some of these comments actually get at the serious part of this phenomenon, which is that some people have both, through kind of an unhealthy combination of two things. One of these things is believing a lot of propaganda or alarmism that isn't true. I mean, I've made many criticisms of the Trump administration, but we've also heard so many fake narratives that are not true. Like, there was a whole thing about how Trump is bringing back segregation. Lots of people think he's going to take away gay marriage. All sorts of things. The Handmaid's Tale stuff. So there's this absurd alarmism about it. Not to say, I mean, I criticize him regularly. I have some criticisms for him later in this episode even, but the idea, like, clearly they have pushed a level of panic in people's minds that is not substantiated by the facts of this administration on social media, in mainstream media coverage, and that has a real psychological effect on some of these people. So they're scared to the most extreme point, and they feel very sad and hopeless about this stuff, which I do have some compassion for them. However, I think that's partially also because people have made politics too big a part of their everyday lives. And they, hang on every word. They listen to hours and hours of political podcasts when really you should be tuning out from that stuff, except for the one amazing podcast that you listen to every Monday through Friday called the Brad versus Everyone podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Other than that, like, it isn't healthy to, it's good to stay informed, but it's not healthy to obsess over politics when it's completely out of your control. And I think from the combination of those two things, we've arrived in this place where some small but not insignificant percentage of the population is so psychologically broken and emotionally damaged by the fact that Trump won that they can't accept reality. They can't cope. They literally have to invent spiritual, multidimensional conspiracy theories to try to convince themselves that what's happening isn't really happening. And that's actually really sad, like really sad. But I think it speaks to a broader problem that people these days, at least many, don't have the right kind of emotional and psychological resilience and coping skills that you need to be a fully functioning adult in a divided and constantly evolving country like ours. But what do you guys think? Have you encountered this stuff in the wild out on your social media feeds? Do you know anybody in real life who actually thinks the timelines will merge and Kamala will replace Trump? I don't, at least not that I know of, but maybe out there somebody is. Let me know in the comments. Do make sure you're subscribed. If you aren't yet, do hit that like button. Remember to send in your voice notes for my Voicemail Friday episodes. Check out the merch linked in the description, and subscribe to my second channel where I'm uploading exclusive bonus content, like a video yesterday where I told the story of a gay influencer who's getting brutally attacked for his criticisms of Pride Month, but really, I don't think he did anything wrong. Up next, guys, a Democratic member of Congress just dropped the cringiest anti-Trump song of all time, and I had to hear it, so you do too. Take a listen and try not to pull out all of your hair.
I'm compelled with a new guitar and with some thoughts about that old song, Hey Joe, to give some commentary on where we are now. Hey, Trump, where you going with that gun in your hand? Trump. Where you going with that gun in your hand? I'm going down the street and shoot down democracy.
Bro.
You know I want to be a king someday. I'm going down and shoot democracy down. You know I want to be the king someday. Hey, Donald Trump, we won't let you take our democracy down. Take it down to the ground. Hey, Trump, we won't let you take our democracy down. Burn it down to the ground. That's it, y'all.
He really thought he ate. He thought he cooked. His team recorded this, filmed this, watched it back, and was like, our man's cooked. This is fire. We have to share this with the world. What? Sir, you need someone in your life who loves you enough to tell you no. To tell you when you have not, in fact, done your big one. Because that was absolutely terrible. I am not musically inclined whatsoever. I think I haven't done anything since third grade chorus, but even to me, the guitar playing was not hitting for me. It didn't hit the way he hoped it hit. The singing was lackluster. The lyrics didn't really make any point at all other than saying Trump, democracy, gun over and over again, which didn't convey much of an argument or information. Also, side note, this is Representative Hank Johnson, a Democrat. Isn't he, I could be remembering this incorrectly, isn't he the one who thought that Guam, which is an island, might tip over?
In a House Armed Services Committee hearing discussing a military buildup on the island of Guam. Here's Georgia Congressman Hank Johnson. Listen.
This is a island that at its widest level is 12 miles from shore to shore, and at its smallest level or smallest location, it's 7 miles between one shore and the other. Is that correct?
I don't have the exact dimensions, but to your point, sir, I think Guam is a small island.
Very small island, and about 24 miles, if I recall, long. So 24 miles long, about 7 miles wide at the least widest place on the island, and about 12 miles wide on the widest part of the island. And I don't know how many square miles that is. Do you happen to know?
I don't have that figure with me, sir. I can certainly supply it to you if you'd like.
Yeah, my fear is that the whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
We don't anticipate that.
I'm mixed between laughing at it all and feeling like a really deep and profound sense of pity and despair. That, like, I really do wish, and I mean this, that Democrats could offer a sane, moderate alternative to the chaos and divisiveness of Donald Trump. But instead, we get a mix of like fringe positions, dying on the hill that states can't ban child sex changes, and cringeworthy resistance pandering like this. Is this really what the Democratic Party can come up with? I mean, this isn't like, you would expect this kind of content from some like cringe suburb dad in Massachusetts or something. This is a sitting member of Congress, and they chose to upload this. Whereas, and obviously, the Republican Party doesn't really have this either, but there used to be something in politics called like message discipline, where if you posted or said stupid crap, your party leadership would crack down on you and say, delete that, stop talking, don't do that. You're hurting our party and making us look bad. And obviously, with Marjorie Taylor Greene constantly saying crazy stuff and all sorts of people on the Republican Party, clearly they don't really have that anymore, but neither do the Democrats, because if they had an ounce of sense, my Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, House Speaker Hakeem Jeffries would call this dude and be like, take that crap down now and fire your social media intern. But they don't have any common sense. And really, at this point, the cringe is the best we can hope for. But I had to hear that, so I subjected y'all to it. So you're welcome for that. Okay, guys, we're going to talk about one more big story that nobody's really paying attention to. It's kind of just happening in the background of American politics right now. And in one sense, I understand that because so much is going on. Iran, the budget, so many other things. But this is actually a big deal because Trump is pretty blatantly breaking the law. You might remember that Congress under Biden passed a bill basically banning TikTok. And then the president at the time, President Joe Biden, signed it into law, and it was actually litigated all the way to the Supreme Court, which upheld it. Now, I was actually against that bill. I don't support banning TikTok as a matter of my policy priorities, and I talked about why at the time extensively. But that law was passed by Congress, signed by the president, and upheld by the Supreme Court. And it was supposed to go into effect many, many months ago. But President Trump has just decided to not enforce it, even though he has absolutely no legal authority to do that. Take a listen to this reporting from Live Now from Fox.
We did want to share this with you as President Trump has just released this statement indicating that he has signed the executive order extending the deadline for the TikTok closing for 90 days. So taking that to September 17th, he says, thank you for your attention in this matter. And we did want to share just a little bit more information as we have now learned that President Trump has extended the deadline for the TikTok sale. This doesn't come as a surprise, as he was indicating that he would do just that. The White House confirming that earlier. This is the third extension since President Trump took office in January. And previously, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that President Trump, in fact, would sign an additional executive order to keep TikTok up and running, saying, quote, as he has said many times, President Trump does not want TikTok to go dark. This extension will last 90 days, which the administration will spend working to ensure this deal is closed so that the American people can continue to use TikTok with the assurance that their data is safe and secure. Now, this move adds to the ongoing developments surrounding TikTok, which is the popular video sharing app owned by Chinese parent company ByteDance. The White House continues to cite national security concerns over potential Chinese government access to U.S. user data. So the delay is technically at odds with a law passed back in 2024, the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act, which was mandated that ByteDance divest its U.S. TikTok operations by this past January. However, President Trump has now signed an executive order to extend that deadline by 90 days, the third time that he has done so since taking office. And any developments, we, of course, will bring them to you.
So there really is just no legal justification for this whatsoever. The original legislation gave the Trump administration the opportunity to extend the deadline once if TikTok or the buyers met a series of conditions, and Trump did do it the first time. So maybe you could say, okay, well, that one's fair enough, though I'm not even sure they met the conditions to do that, but say that one's fair enough. The second and third just pauses in enforcement are nowhere in the law. There's nothing saying he can do that. He just made it up. And a reporter from the Free Press asked the White House what their legal authority for this was, and Caroline Leavitt gave an absolute nothing burger of an answer. Take a listen.
The decision to extend the, delay in enforcing the TikTok ban.
Sure.
Can you talk about how the White House understands its constitutional authority in light of the Supreme Court's decision in January that said that the president had to enforce the ban?
Sure. Well, as all of you know, because the president put it out on his Truth Social today, he did sign an executive order to extend the TikTok ban for 90 days. So in the effort to make a deal. And the White House counsel and the Department of Justice have reviewed this executive order, and I can get it for you. I think it's on our website by now. If it's not, my team will now put it up immediately. And you can read the language in that executive order. And the White House counsel's office and the Department of Justice strongly believe in the legal rationale for this executive order. They wouldn't have the president's pen hit it if they didn't. And the political reasoning for this, of course, is because the president made a promise to keep TikTok on. There are 100 million Americans who use this app. It's widely popular. He also wants to protect Americans' data and privacy concerns on this app, and he believes we can do both things at the same time. So he's making an extension so we can get this deal done.
Notice how, when asked what the legal justification was, she cited no law, no provision of this law, no federal statute, no part of the Constitution allowing the president to simply decline to enforce the law of the land because he doesn't agree with it. That's not a thing, and Trump explicitly took an oath of office to uphold the laws of the United States, but he's just saying, nah, I don't really want to do that one, so I'm going to just not for a while, and doing it over and over again. And look, you can't really separate this from the conversation that he had massive donors who have financial stakes in TikTok, because Trump used to support banning it, then did a 180, and it coincided with two things. Trump becoming more popular on TikTok, which, let's be honest, he cares a lot about that, and a very prominent donor who has a big financial stake in TikTok, giving a lot of money to the Trump campaign. So I don't exactly think the motivations for this are pure as fresh winter snow. But even if they were, it doesn't matter. It's illegal. You can't just not enforce the laws when you swore to uphold them. Justin Stapley pointed out on Twitter, this is a blatant violation of the oath of office. The president cannot choose to forever postpone the faithful execution of the laws passed by Congress. And a community note was added to Trump's post. The president has no legal authority to extend the deadline another 90 days. The Supreme Court, in TikTok versus Garland, wrote, the act permits the president to grant a one-time extension of no more than 90 days with respect to the prohibitions, 270-day effective date. Yet this is Trump's third extension, which isn't legal. It's not allowed. And it doesn't matter whether you are in support of banning TikTok. It doesn't matter whether you're against banning TikTok, like I was at the time. The rule of law is a more important principle. And Trump is just blatantly violating it with this. And it's funny because you had the Democrats with their No Kings protests, and you have them crying authoritarianism and fascism over things like arresting mayoral candidates in New York City who literally try to stop ICE from arresting an illegal immigrant, when that's just like obstruction of justice. Yet this is, without a doubt, the most king-like and the most authoritarian, one of the most authoritarian things that Trump has done as president. Democrats aren't really picking up on it very much. There's been a little bit of criticism and pushback, but because they don't actually believe in a lot of these values, they're just kind of transactional. And a lot of them like TikTok, or want it. Some of them, many did support banning it, but a lot of them do like it and want to keep it. So, and it's just, I guess, not as sexy as like immigration or other issues where they can rally their base. But this is actually a huge deal and really not okay, but they're just not really running with it. It's kind of wild to me. But what do you guys think? How do you feel about this TikTok ban and the way that Trump is simply refusing to enforce the laws of the land? Let me know in the comments. All right, guys, that'll be it for this episode of the Bread versus Everyone podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Please do make sure to subscribe if you aren't yet. Do hit that like button before you go. Remember to send in voicemails with your woke horror stories for my Voicemail Fridays, or your other personal life situations and scenarios that you want my advice or my feedback on. Remember to check out the merch, subscribe to my second channel, yada, yada, yada. And with that, we'll talk again real soon.